Yeah, I expect I'm going to upset a lot of people today, particularly if you don't like e-bikes. So if you're easily triggered, then I suggest you click away now. I'll start off by saying that I quite like e-bikes, and that's simply because I've actually ridden one. In my experience, it tends to be the people that have never ridden an e-bike in their lives that have the biggest problems with them. And in that way, it's a lot like the people that say that cyclists shouldn't be on the road because they don't pay road tax or because they don't have insurance. Essentially, they're all non-cyclists just spouting anti-cyclist shite that they've read in the tabloids or they've seen on TV, and they've never really taken the time to think about whether it makes sense or not. No surprise, top of the pops when it comes to these e-bike myths is that riding an e-bike is cheating. So okay, if you were, for example, in a bike race riding an e-bike and everybody else was on a regular muscle bike, then yes, that would 100% be cheating. But on a more mundane level, if you were trying to steal somebody's KOM on Strava on an e-bike, then I suppose yes, you could also argue that that's cheating as well. But let's get things in perspective here. It's Strava, for heaven's sake, not the Tour de France. And moreover, it's probably not going to be one of the major climbs like Alpe d'Huez or Mont Ventoux. It's more likely going to be some insignificant little climb in the back end of nowhere that nobody gives a toss about, except maybe the person who's got the KOM and maybe the person that's trying to beat him. Surprise, surprise, the people that I know at least that ride e-bikes are riding them for exactly the same reasons that everybody else rides their bikes, namely for fun and for fitness. Yes, I said fitness, but I'll get onto that in a bit. And if they are riding their bikes for fun and for fitness, I cannot see how anybody can be accused of cheating. They're not competing against anybody. But okay, yes, I know some of the purists would say that, well, they can't get to the top of a climb under their own power, so it's not really satisfying for them. And okay, on some level, I kind of get that. But, you know, if you're not riding a fixed wheel bike with a 1-to-1 gear ratio, then you could also be accused of cheating. And I'm sure the chaps wearing those bowler hats riding penny farthings also got all bent out of shape when people started riding bikes with gears. Another stupid myth about e-bikes is that they're for lazy people. And I suppose it runs a little bit like this. Normal people go out and ride muscle bikes. They put effort into riding their bikes, and lazy people ride bikes with motors. Well, here's the news flash for you. The lazy people are actually the ones that are sat at home with their asses stuck to the sofa watching Emmerdale Farm and Love Island. The people that are out and about riding bikes, riding e-bikes, aren't the lazy ones. And yes, the irony of that has just dawned on me. Here's a clip of me riding a bike. One of the really stupid myths about e-bikes is that you can't get fit riding one. And I know from personal experience that that is just not true. My first ever experience of riding an e-bike was when I rode one across Tuscany back in 2020. And believe you me, when I was riding it, my heart rate was up, I was sweating, I was breathing hard, and quite often I was at the very max of my heart rate. So I was certainly getting a good workout. Now I'll admit that I don't ride an e-bike all that often, but when I have, it's really dawned on me that it's not any easier riding an e-bike. And I know that's hard to believe, but again, going back to when I was cycling around Tuscany on an e-bike, all I found was that I put as much effort into riding the bike, particularly up the climb, and all it did was help me get to the top a little bit quicker. It also surprises me when I hear all of these stories about people that think they're not fit enough to ride a regular muscle bike, and then they go out and buy an e-bike. So they ride that for a little bit, they build up a level of fitness, and then they start thinking, oh, maybe I am fit enough to ride a regular bike. They go out and buy one and they're absolutely fine. But of course the diehards are never going to take my word for it. So in my hand here, I have a report in the International Journal of Behavioural Nutrition and Physical Activity. It was written in 2018 by Jessica Bourne et al. And it's entitled Health Benefits of Electrically Assisted Cycling, a Systematic Review. Now, the report's 15 pages long, so it's quite a big read, but conveniently, there's a little abstract at the beginning. It's very short, and let me read you the first line of the conclusion. E-cycling can contribute to meeting physical activity recommendations and increasing physical fitness. So there you go. If you'd like to read this report for yourself, I'll include a link to it in the description below. Now, whenever I make a video about e-bikes, I can guarantee that there'll always be some clown that'll pop up in the comments and say, you might as well get a moped. Okay, right, well, my experience of riding a moped is very limited indeed, but when I have ridden one, I've got on it, I've twisted the accelerator, and off it's gone. My heart rate hasn't increased, my breathing hasn't increased, I haven't even broken sweat unless it's been somewhere particularly hot. It's a very zero effort way of getting from A to B. Now, you cannot say that about e-bikes. Okay, yes, they do have a motor, some have it in the hub, some have it in the cranks, but you still have to pedal to be able to get somewhere. You still have to put some effort into making that motor work. If you stop pedaling, eventually the bike will just grind to a halt and you will fall over. It does not propel itself and therefore is not a moped. Another myth about e-bikes is that they run out of power very quickly, and when they do, you're just left with a heavy bike. Well, yes, okay, e-bikes do necessarily have to be a little bit heavier than regular bikes. Of course, they've got a battery and they've got a motor. And when I first picked up the e-bike that I cycled across Tuscany, I was surprised at how heavy it was. But then when I started riding it, it didn't actually feel that heavy. And most of the time I was riding that bike, I was riding with the motor off. I only really used the motor when I got to the hills. Now, when I see the ranges of e-bikes published in the manufacturer's spec, I do kind of look at them with a little bit of a pinch of salt. They claim their bikes have a range of 50 miles, 70 miles, 100 miles, and yeah, to be fair, that's usually under perfect conditions. A very light rider riding on a flat route. And when it comes to somebody like me, a heavier rider riding on an undulating route, that is really going to take its toll on the battery and really decrease the range. But every single e-bike that I've ever ridden has had a very accurate battery level indicator on the front there, so I can really see when the battery is full, when it's half full, or when it's about to run out. And when I think that the power is about to go, that's the time I'll think about heading back and finishing my ride. An interesting footnote here is that when I was riding across Italy, we got to a particular climb that was like 4 kilometers long. And for shits and giggles, I thought, well, let's see if I can ride up it without the motor and see how long it takes me. I knew that on my regular muscle bike, it would take me around about 45 minutes. And lo and behold, on an apparently heavy e-bike without using the motor, it took me more or less the same time.
Ooh, that was hard. Turn the bloody motor on.
At the end of the day, what on earth does it matter what bike somebody's riding? It can be an e-bike, it can be a penny farthing, a unicycle, even a little kid's tricycle, for heaven's sake. Whatever they're riding, let them get on and do it. It doesn't take anything away from you or the bike that you're riding. You can still go out and you can still ride it as hard and as fast as you choose. But if you still think that riding an e-bike is easy, then I suggest you go over and you watch me suffer as I ride one across Tuscany. And you can do that by clicking on the playlist just here.